keeping your advisor in the loop throughout this process and not simply dropping a paper on their desk on the due date and saying, there, it's done. Okay, so in a sense, that's what they're rating you on there, is your ability to keep up with them, to discuss and write. And that kind of feeds really right into category 3, which is communicated regularly with your project advisor, providing updates, asking questions, etc. The reason why everybody in the room has a project advisor is we want that person to walk with you through this process of collecting the data and analyzing and writing up your paper and so forth. Have you communicated with them throughout the process? We want to make sure that that has happened, because that's how you learn best. You're learning from somebody and with somebody who has been down this road before with collecting data and making decisions and writing things up. And so let them help you make sure that they're an active part of that by communicating with them regularly. And then the last category is acting professionally in the process, keeping appointments. You tell your advisor you're going to meet them Thursday at 4:30. If you don't show up, that's a problem. So make sure that you keep your appointments, that you ask good questions along the way, that you stay in touch with them. So generally speaking, what we're asking advisors to do is to say, did you toe the line? You know, did you do the work that you're supposed to do? Communicate with them, get things turned in professionally, on time, etc. And if so, the points pretty much take care of themselves. Okay? If there's a snag along the way, obviously that's going to count against you. So your advisor can actually access those through Canvas electronically, but we just need those forms by the end of April to be able to process final grades. Okay? All right. So, before we get into some of the dates of when everything is due and so forth, I want to kind of do one last check with you of where things are. And I know that first and foremost in your brain right now is EdTPA. Right? And so it needs to be, right? So you're out, you're getting your student teaching started, you're thinking about getting the videotaping done, getting that written up and turned in. Thank goodness this year, this semester, the EdTPA dates are a lot earlier than they were last year, so you don't have this hanging over your head. Last year the EdTPA wasn't due until the middle of April, and people were stressing about it all the semester long, and you just don't have to wait that long on it. So that's obviously a priority right now. So we do try to stagger this so you get that done first. But I want to get around the room here and just have you tell us these three things. Remind us again of the topic you're doing. What is your game plan for when you're planning on collecting your data? I know that some people are looking at data collection as part of or soon after the EdTPA process. Some are doing it right after, some are doing it later. You know, what is your plan? What's that going to look like? And what kind of data are you going to be collecting and analyzing when that time comes? To kind of give us an update of where you are. So, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. When is the deadline for the paper?
It's on another slide. Can't remember. It's coming up. I think it's due April 10th? 15th? That's not right? Yeah.
15th?
15th. Okay. Thank you.
I just knew there was a delay between the paper and the rubric. And
yes. It's a couple weeks to the rubric. Yeah. So we'll get back to all those specific dates here in a few minutes because I want to talk about, make sure this is coordinated with dates for TPA also. Can you all get yourselves to where you can see each other? Maybe move your chairs around a little bit so you can see each other.
I'm not really sure.
Alright, brief reminder. My topic, I am studying competitive-based review games and their benefit as increasing assessment scores. I'm looking to collect my data. Pretty much, I need two major assessments. One without the use of the competitive games and one with the use of competitive games. So I'll probably start with the first major assessment that I give my students. I'm going to be collecting both quantitative and qualitative data. I'm going to use my students' scores to help, and I'm going to give them a survey towards the end of, probably after the second assessment, just to see whether or not they themselves believe that the games were beneficial to them or not.
I must have missed a minute. I'm sorry because I was checking handouts when you started. When did you say you're going to start collecting data?
I'll probably start with my first assessment, which will probably be in the next month.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
I'm giving problems that are more like problem-solving based, and then having the students present their answers to see if that helps with their reasoning and being able to like verbalize their reasoning. I just started taping as like practice for EdTPA, but the next week or two, I'm gonna start taping 2 to 3 classes so that I can kind of do it with a couple classes. And if one doesn't work for some reason, then I have backup as well. That's gonna be my pre-assessment for kind of like what kind of responses they give in class and those kind of things. And then I think either right before or right after EdTPA is due, I'm going to actually like implement the project, and then after that I'm gonna tape again to measure the student responses. And I'm just taping so that I can actually go back and do it on what I'm teaching, and not like, oh, Mrs. Beck is teaching the first time when I did the pre-assessment and then I'm teaching, because that would just not work. But then I can see their responses in all the classes and actually make my observations. And I'm probably going to interview, which will probably be towards the end, right after they do their presentations.
That's
I don't know,
interesting.
did I
So
answer all the questions?
yeah, you did. So it's kind of like your pre-assessment data then, at least the videotaping you're doing, you're actually using as kind of like a practice for videotaping for EdTPA
Yeah.
as a way to gather your data for this project.
Yeah, so they might actually overlap.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do days where it's like at least more interactive, and then like post-assessment will be more interactive days too. So I guess it kind of depends on what days that happens.
Yeah.
But
Okay, thanks, Richard.
So, as you all know, flipped classroom, still doing that. We are collecting data we're doing surveys after we do each type of classroom, along with so mid-survey and then final survey. I will add some more questions to compare the two. The couple extended response questions for more, qualitative results. I could quote students. Also going to do, because interviews we take too much time to do individual ones, take too much time in a classroom, but I'm going to try to spend a portion of the class doing a group discussion where I could record it, and then afterwards pull quotes or things for more qualitative results. I'm also going to compare grades and see how they change throughout the research. I want to try to do them both on the same unit of material, because if I change subjects, it might make it harder to compare the two. So I'm going to try to do it when I do roots and radicals on the 24th-ish to early March. February. I not say that. Was there any other questions?
So data collection somewhere between the end of February, early March, and then we'll be doing an analysis in March so that you're finished by.
So it will overlap with the EdTPA, but I'm doing the EdTPA pretty early on, so I should have that done already, which would be good. So.
Good. Okay, thanks very much, Josh.
So mine is looking at effective teaching, so having my students engage in the classroom and talking, which is a big change for them for right now. So talking and having them do some group work, group activities, and then basically having them reason why some of the answers are, why they're getting what they're getting makes sense. And so really just all these things that we've been learning about, and looking at how that affects their belief in that. So whether or not they see it as useful, whether or not they think that they're good at math, whether or not they think they're able to do math. And so I actually collected my first set of data on Friday. It was really good. I had a Google Doc, and they filled it out on the laptops. And I actually learned a lot about my students, about how they think they learn. So I'm hoping to maybe incorporate that a little bit more and see some change with them.
So you're already collecting data. How will that compare with what's your plan with EdTPA? Is that overlapping then also?
EdTPA should really be the same type of teaching style.
Yeah.
So really, it's not anything change, just add two different projects all at once.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, so I'm doing peer accountability groups. So they're going to set goals and work with groups of their peers to try to reach their goals. So I'm going to use Google Forms, and that's how they're going to kind of preference for their groups. They're going to tell me somebody they want, somebody they don't want, so that works out. We're going to use Google Forms whenever they go to their computer lab to collect my data. It's basically going to be all qualitative data, they're going to tell me what their goal was and what they're doing to reach it, and if they feel like they're actually
When do you plan on doing it?
Oh, yeah. Probably in the next 2 or 3 weeks, 'cause I'm halfway through NTPA basically.
Great.
So,
I'm doing seating positions, where the students sit in the classroom. I have 3 of the same classes, so I'm gonna be like running all different way of grouping students in each class and compare the results on how their performance changes from their previous performance. So we just changed seats in my classes today, so in about 4 or 5 weeks, I'm gonna switch it for my action project. So I'm gonna be looking at their scores and as well as recording a few days when we have heavy group work and noting counting behavioral, I guess, problems or how they ask questions, and I have a rubric for that. So just seeing how they pay attention and how I group the students affect their performance.
Now, when you say you're changing the seating, you mean just in terms of who is grouped with whom?
Yeah,
You're not
they're
physically
sitting with-
changing?
I'm not changing the seating arrangement, changing their seating positions so that they're in groups.
Okay.
So I strategically are placing them in groups
Mhm.
based on their academic performance.
I'm doing formative assessment, mainly entrance and exit tickets on a daily basis with the feedback given back to them the next day, and how does that change their belief in how they're learning and how they're doing with that particular unit. So right now, I'm in the middle of filming this week, and we have some entrance and exit tickets just kind of hit and miss here and there. They're not this like daily thing. So then probably towards, I think we're shooting for the last week in February, we will start where they're getting one every day for like 2 to 3 weeks. Usually it's about a unit, so I think that one's like 2.5 weeks long. And they'll get one every day, and they'll get it back the next day with comments and feedback. The data will be collected. There's a survey kind of that will give, I'll get through NCPA within about 2 to 3 weeks. I'll give them a survey of just how the class is going right now, how do they feel they're doing, about their math, how do they know how well they're doing. And then after we do these formative assessments, did they like them, did they not? Do they think that they know more about where they're struggling, having done them, that kind of thing.
So when will you actually finish collecting your data? Like when will that be?
It'll be like the second week of March will be the last, because that unit where I will do it every day, an exit ticket or an entrance ticket every day is about 2.5 weeks long, so I'll do it for the whole unit.
Okay.
And then it'll end when the unit's over. So about first, second week of March.
So you'll have a good month at least in there, then be able to put it all together.
I'm looking at concept maps. I'm doing 2 different types of concept maps. I'm looking at one that's called Link Node, which is you start with a topic and you kind of guide your students through which way to go. I'm starting to collect data next week because I should be starting the cardiovascular system, so that way I can assess my students' prior knowledge along with what they actually learned afterwards. I haven't really decided on how I will be collecting the data, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to go with survey or an interview. That's what I'm torn between right now.
And maybe both.
Yeah.
Maybe both. I mean, I would encourage that if there's a way that you can pull off both. You know, the whole process of triangulating so that you get survey data